All right. I think we're live. Push one in the chat if you can hear me. All right. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 552. Black Economics. Please hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust and those posted on the community tab. Doc in the description, meet the video for you to follow along with. If you want to engage in this discussion, there'll be a link in the chat for you to click on. When you click on the link, make sure you raise your hand so that one of us can acknowledge you and advance you to the panel. Just as an FYI, we're not certified financial planners. If you want to certify a financial planner, go to cfp.net and look up one in your area. Before you join the panel, make sure you update your Zoom app to 5.0.5. There is a new Zoom app update available. Make sure you download that before you even join the panel. All right. Let me drop the link in the chat for those who want to join us. All right. All right, let's go with the first item on the docket. Give a shout out to the people who showed up first in the chat as well. Jackson J. Peace, Hardfort Rich, what it do? Dr. Phoenix, good evening to you. Black Scorpion, peace. DE Raptor, shalom. All right, first item on the docket is from the New York Times. Manhattan faces a reckoning if working from home becomes the norm. Even after the crisis eases, companies may let workers stay home. That would affect an entire ecosystem from transit to restaurants to shops, not to mention the tax base. Before the coronavirus crisis, 3 of New York City's largest commercial tenants, Barclays, JP Morgan, Chase, and Morgan Stanley, had tens of thousands of workers in towers across Manhattan. Now, as the city wrestles with when and how to reopen, executives at all 3 firms have decided that it is highly unlikely that all their workers will ever return to those buildings. The research firm Nielsen has arrived at a similar conclusion. Even after the crisis has passed, its 3,000 workers in the city will no longer need to be in the office full time and can instead work from home most of the week. The real estate company Halstead has 32 branches across the city and region, but its chief executive, who now conducts business over video calls, is mulling reducing its footprint. Manhattan has the largest business district in the country, and its office towers have long been a symbol of the city's global dominance. With hundreds of thousands of workers, office workers, the commercial tenants have given rise to a vast ecosystem, from public transit to restaurants to shops. They have also funneled huge amounts of taxes into state and city coffers. But now, as the pandemic eases its grip, companies are considering not just how to safely bring back employees, but whether all of them need to come back at all. They were forced by the crisis to figure out how to function productively with workers operating from home and realize unexpectedly that that it was not all bad. If that's the case, they are now wondering whether it's worth continuing to spend as much money on Manhattan's exuberant commercial rents. They also, they are also mindful that public health considerations might make the packed workplaces of the recent past less viable. Is it really necessary? Said Diane M. Ramirez, the chief executive of Halstead, which has more than 1,000 agents in the New York region. I'm thinking long. I'm thinking long and hard about it. Looking forward, are people going to want to crowd into offices? Yeah, we talked about this. And let me advance this person. We've talked about this, and what it sounds like to me is that legacy corporations cannot really go back to pre-COVID times. That those times have come and gone, and they don't know how to adjust to that. That transition that happened so rapidly. And so you have all these buildings that were newly laid out or recently constructed, and what are you going to do with it now? It's all empty, right? I think that work from home is going to be the way forward. There really was never a reason to be in the office other than for cultural purposes. Cultural purposes now dictate, or cultural purposes have now been disrupted by a pandemic, and shows how fragile your culture is, that it could easily be disrupted by that. And so what's the purpose of people being in the office? Other than for socialization, there's no real reason anymore. Most people have 3 devices. They have a phone, a smartphone, a tablet, and a full-fledged computer. There's no real reason to really communicate or to really be around people in the physical office anymore. So these corporations are trying to find a way to sustain their culture, and they can't do it, and they can't really rationalize spending all this money on real estate, and it could cause a domino effect in the ecosystem in New York, especially. All of these, I'm using this picture as an example. All of these big buildings and signs and advertisements and restaurants and satellite businesses and bike sharing and taxis and stuff like that. That's a dead system now.
It's interesting. I've been dealing with a company in the what's up, Mike? What's going on?
What's going on?
All right, man. I've been dealing with a company up in the in the capital region, and they happen to be an online engineering media company, and they have an office, where they have their online reps who actually work there, but they also have remote offices where they have a lot of people who work remotely, and they've been doing this now since I've been dealing with them since 2004. So they've been there, a good 16 years with a lot of reps who've been working from home. So a lot of companies have actually been doing this, or starting to they've been segueing people home for a while. So I just think this was something that was going to happen anyway. I think COVID, like this COVID is doing, it's just accelerating certain things at a faster rate than we would have seen. But I think they're just bringing these, it's just making this happen faster than it was going to happen. But I do believe we were going there anyway. The work from home option.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on, y'all?
Yo, chillin', man. What's going on?
What's going on?
I'm speaking. It's funny that Mike, you leading off with this because I'm on the clock. I'm just on break right now, but I'm at the crib, so this is right on time in terms of the conversation here. I cannot see a return, especially if productivity is increased, right? So that's sort of like the death knell. If you also see like comparable or increased productivity, right? And you have a reduced overhead, vis-a-vis you don't have office space or commercial real estate costs to consider. I mean, you're making a hard argument you're making a hard argument.
There's no doubt. It's done, man. It's a done deal. What you say it is, it's a done deal, man. It's over.
Yeah, it's like it really just would not make any sense unless it was like essential for some reason.
Yeah, if you're a hospital or something like that, that makes sense. Essential workers in that regard. But Barclays and Chase and JP, what reason do you have to have all these people in the office other than for traders, right? The traders got to be on the floor. They got to be in a secure location. Okay, fine. But all these other auxiliary people, there's no real reason for them to be in the office other than we're trying to maintain the culture that was there from the beginning of the organization.
Yeah. Now I heard of one company, what they're doing is they're opening the office back up, but what they're doing is that who they're letting in is the people who can't work from home. Right? These are like valued employees that, because of their living situation or something like that, they don't want to lose those employees, right? So they're going to see in a large space, you can space them out, right? In a large space, if it's only going to be a few people, and that's if you got to maintain that lease that you got on the building, for example, right? So if you're going to make use of it, you got to. You could do it that way. I've heard of a company that was going to be doing that. That was going to be to bring people only staff who cannot work from home and let the rest remain at home.
I don't know. I know a guy who's working at a staffing company. He's out. He's out on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. They're bringing them back into the office in 2 weeks. So they have that office space there, and they're there. Now they've changed it from instead of 5 days a week, you have to be in the office. Now you can work from home possibly from 2 days a week, but you have to be in the office at least 3 days a week. So I think some companies are going to go that way, but many are not. The banks, are certainly going to have people in there because you're going to have a personal interaction with clients and stuff like that as well. So some businesses that are really better slated for you working at home, some IT companies and so forth, where you can, work remotely and, access the systems remotely and kind of handle it from there. Yeah. But I think some companies are going to go back to as much business as normal or what they were doing previously. This is what they're going to kind of stick to. They may alter some of the days, but some of these other companies, some of these newer startups and others, some of these newer companies that are out here kind of rocking and rolling, I think they might take on that model of being home, especially if you can be productive. Sales, technology, that type of thing, you can kind of work from home a little bit better and have sales meetings and that kind of thing by way of GoToMeeting or Zoom or like Zoom is real big. So Zoom is big now, and some of the other apps that are out there that people are currently using, even Skype. So people are going to be doing that a lot more in certain business, but I think some very traditional brick and mortars are going to stick to their old time models as well.
But see, I wonder if they open themselves up to lawsuits, if anybody gets infected going further.
It's a possibility.
That's another reason why
But they have liability insurance for that. I mean, there is certain kind of insurances that they have. Certain liability you have.
Yeah, there is, but there's the PR specter. Shit, I can't really talk about that. But there is that PR specter, right? That your company didn't take precautions, or your company didn't really view this with the utmost seriousness, right?
Well, they're going to come back with protocols. These companies are going to come back with protocols. So if you got to come back with a mask, and you've got to work at, and you've got to be distanced from someone else, and some people may have independent offices where they can work, or maybe the cubicles can be moved apart a little bit. They come back with protocols. I don't see a whole lot of issues that they're going to come down.
Well, I'll tell you like this. That was the protocol before where I was at. That was the protocol before all this shit went down. Spacing people out, wearing masks inside, and then from there it could shindo down to like everybody work from home. I mean, I can't see people then leaving home and then going back to an environment where you got to wear a mask and sit across. I don't know.
Yeah, that's expensive to move people on floors and stuff like that, space out cubicles, make adjustments to that.
Yeah.
The labor behind that, from a Teamster standpoint, that's expensive. I mean, you're talking $60 an hour just to readjust a cubicle. That's
you have a lot of
readjusting a cubicle, but what about even having to then rerun the wire as a result?
Well, you have a lot of call centers and stuff that are going to need to be staffed with people, and they're taking in large volume calls. They're dealing in situations where you're going to have people who are going to work at a kind of at a central location and work from a shift perspective. Can you do that at home? Who knows? But this is going to certainly be a door we're going to have to pass through, because I do believe that a lot of these companies are going to go back to some of their old traditional model. Just like I see this one guy working at this one company who I know, he's going 2 weeks, they're going back. They're only cutting 1 day off, 1 day or maybe 2 days, but they're back in the saddle, fam, back in the saddle. So I think a lot of people are going to do it, and if they don't have an opportunity to, or if they decide, well, listen, I'm not coming back or whatever, then they're not going to get unemployment. Their ass is going to get fired, and they're going to keep moving forward. So I don't know. So it's going to come down to that, I think, for some. It is what it is.
Yeah. I just think that from a real estate standpoint, this is too much of a burden on most of these companies who may not be turning profit because of the pandemic. Numbers may be down, market may be down, may not make a whole lot of sense to to reopen your facility. May want to think about shuttering some of these things in order to make up for lost revenue.
If it can cut their overhead, as we say, keep your overhead low, your savings and profits high, and these kind of things. Yeah, that may work. That may be an answer for some, and then they're not so much they're making a business decision. It's a business decision. It's about the bottom line, dollars and cents. If it comes down to that, some companies will, but some of these other companies may not. And I don't see how the banks and stuff are going to really be able to do that. Some of the banks and some of the big insurance companies and the brokerage houses even don't know if they're going to be able to do that so much from home. I don't know. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how this is going to shape out.
Yeah. All right, let me get to the next item on the docket from businessinsider.com. Bank of America says a new bubble may be forming in the stock market and shares a cheap strategy for protection that is significantly more profitable than the past 10 years. Stock market rallies do not have to be monumental as the dot-com boom to qualify as bubbles. For equity derivative strategists at Bank of America, the forces lifting the market higher are powerful enough to potentially make stocks vastly overpriced. None of these catalysts is hard to dismiss, even for bearish investors who doubt that the economy will quickly recover from coronavirus crisis in a V-shaped manner. Most importantly, the U.S. has provided more monetary and fiscal support than any other country during this downturn, and made the appeal of its financial assets irresistible. The concern shared by Bank of America is that these gains could prompt investors to dust off a playbook that worked after the 2008 financial crisis, buying price dips and betting that weaknesses will be short-lived. Quant investors who are insensitive to price and willing to add more risk to their portfolios than joining the buying, creating a market-wide fear of missing out that fuels the market higher. A major risk, therefore, is the formation of a U.S. equity bubble, as fundamentals take a back seat to investors' need to allocate capital to what's arguably the safest risk asset left. A team of strategists, including Gonzalo Aces, said in a recent note, the backdrop for this bubble scenario is the worst economic contraction since the Great Depression, which investors appear to be tossing to the back seat. But the strategist study of every contraction since 1929 led to the conclusion that a sustained rebound from the March low would be historic anomaly. So we're left with two competing risks. Investors who are skeptical that this time is different may need to capitulate and buy a market that just keeps flying higher. On the other hand, stocks may simply be staging a classic bear market rally that collapses. Bank of America recommendation is not to pick one of these sides. Instead, the strategists devise a strategy that would help investors hedge the bubble risk while participating in its upside. They view it as a cheap way to rent rather than own stocks that might rise. Interesting. The team's apparatus involved call spreads, which are designed to bet on limited price gains. The strategy is executed by simultaneously buying and selling an equal number of call options. The strategists screen for stocks in industries with the worst performance since the market peaked in February 19, as these have more upside. Also, the chosen stocks have historically flat call skew, meaning traders are not paying a premium to bet on price increases. Now, Nagon, what is a call option? I think Nagon's away. Let me advance this other person. D, you're after Shalom.
Oh, shalom, everybody.
Yeah,
Hey, options. There are two kind of options. One is the put and one is the call. A call, one option is betting that the market is going to go down, or the stock that you own is. Suppose I bought the market. I bet that the Dow Jones is going to go down, and I put a put on the that the market is going to decline. Say if it don't decline, I lose my money. If it declines, I can triple, quadruple, depending on the point spread. You can quadruple the money that you make from a decline or from the market going up. Like the market went up 1,000 points. If you put on the market going up, you made a lot of money today.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a difficult thing to do if you just a small guy in the market. There are people who bet, a couple 100,000 that the market going each way every month, and one I forgot the hedge fund. The guy made I think it was about 10 billion when the market dropped 2,000 points the other day after the country closed down because of COVID. This guy made a killing, So you have to have the money to bet on make that kind of bet. If you are a small guy in the market, it doesn't make sense to do it.
Let me answer this for one from the chat. New Jersey Prophet says, what will be done with the real estate? Rezone and turn into into an apartments. That's a possibility. Only problem is who's going to pay for it. Who's going to pay for all those, those apartments? New York City doesn't like subsidizing, the people that are already there. So you imagine if they did turn, that old legacy real estate for those businesses into condos and whatnot. You can imagine that the question comes, who's going to live there? Who wants to literally live on that busy street in the area that was once for strictly business and not really for residential living? I don't know. I mean, it's a good question, but
But that happened in New York City, right? The Iron District, they took that and turned it all into lots and condos. And the businesses that were there, they took it out. And the same thing is going uptown. Although, like in downtown Brooklyn, what they call the Iron Yards, they knocked down all those buildings and rebuilt new buildings down there. The place is now a whole shopping area with art centers and restaurants and all that, condos. So it depends on the condition of the economy for one thing, and then how much the people are getting how much they're paying for that real estate.
Yeah.
So sometimes the city, especially New York City, what they'll do is that they would take over a place, and then turn it over to somebody, and the person will say, you know what, I guarantee you this will happen, so. And once they meet that guarantees, then I mean, I don't know if you remember the Navy Yards. If you ever went to Brooklyn, that's what they did with the Navy Yards.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me go to the next article. This one is from CNN.com. AMC Theaters has substantial doubt it can remain in business. Imagine that. This was sent in by MOT. AMC Theaters, the world's biggest movie theater chain, said on Wednesday that it has substantial doubt it can remain in business after closing locations across the globe during the coronavirus pandemic. The theater chain, which closed its theaters early this year, expects to have lost between $2.1 billion and $2.4 billion in the first quarter. The company also said its revenues fell to $941.5 million, which was down roughly 22% from $1.2 billion in the same quarter last year. This quarter, the situation has gotten substantially worse. We are generating effectively no revenue, the company said in a regulatory filing Wednesday. AMC will continue to monitor the potential lifting of various government operating restrictions, but added that the chain has serious challenges even if restrictions are lifted. That includes studios holding back new films from being shown. Even if governmental operating restrictions are lifted in certain jurisdictions, distributors may delay the release of new films until such time that operating restrictions are eased more broadly domestically and internationally, which may further limit our operations, the company said. The company said it had a cash balance of $718.3 million as of April. We believe we have the cash resources to reopen our theaters and resume our operations this summer or later, AMC said. Our liquidity needs thereafter will depend, among other things, on the timing of a full resumption of operations, the timing of the movie releases, and our ability to generate revenues. The company stock rose 4% after initially declining 8% in the early morning trading on Wednesday. The coronavirus outbreak has ravaged the movie theater business. Movie theaters, large and small, were closed because of the outbreak and some of the year's biggest films, Mulan, Wonder Woman 1984 and F9 were delayed. Movie theaters like AMC also faced another existential threat because audiences can't watch movies at home. This was the case with Universal's Trolls World Tour, which bypassed theaters for a digital release. Universal's decision to release Trolls on demand caused a feud between the studio and AMC, leading to the chain to ban Universal films from its theaters. Yeah, your days are numbered. You know, all of this traditional legacy business that we're accustomed to seeing, those days are over. Who really wants to be in a movie theater during the pandemic and post-pandemic? Who really wants to be in that place in the dark with all types of germs flying around? Oh man, I don't know, man. Especially with all these protests going on. Do you really want to be in a movie theater with people throwing bottles and stuff, man? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know, man. It wouldn't be me, but this was inevitable because AMC had a fragile sort of revenue generator. It was so fragile that all it took was one shutdown from the government that had nothing to do with them to disproportionately impact their whole entire bottom line. And so losing $2.1 billion in a quarter is nothing to sneeze at. They're pretty much finished at this point. The only thing they can do is really close locations where, the revenue was never great to begin with, and really just call it a day. But what do you do with a building that was largely designed for a movie theater to begin with? Can't really use it for any other purposes. How I do see them coming back, though, if they got a partnership with the NFL to really host games, and the NBA to really host games, and they can watch it in high definition on a theater screen, that might be the recovery method, or one way of recovery. But because the NBA and the NFL, especially the NBA, is talking about not just running games with no actual people in the stadium. But then if I'm AMC, I'm seeing this as an opportunity to bring in some more revenue. All right, let me jump to that.
One comment, a lot of theaters before this, they were making their money based on sales of popcorn and concessions. Mm-hmm. And it is only certain movies, like say for instance Star Wars, that's guaranteed to make money. But I've been to the theater where 15, 20, 30 people inside the theater. Mm-hmm. So they were looking at the concessions to make money, not filling the seats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the economy will never be the same. It'll never be the same. I don't know. All those brick and mortar businesses are feeling it right now. You can't continue into another quarter losing $2.1 billion, $1.2 billion. And it's impossible. And you only have about $700 million in cash to really work with. I don't know. They're going to go through a lot of automation at this point. You may not have to go to the usher to get into a movie theater at this point. You may be able to just tap your phone, and get advanced seating. If that's going to be the case, cut out the middle employees, the small labor that you had to begin with. They're going to look at all ways to, keep their overhead low. They're going to have to.
Yeah, everybody's going to be looking at ways to indemnify themselves against something like this happening again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we this is not the end of the pandemic. We're only in the beginning stages of it. We're seeing more new cases open up. Just this week alone. New hundreds, if not thousands, of new infections, and that's just with the market opening up in phase one. All right, this next one is from NPR.com. Millions of Americans skip payments as tidal wave of defaults and evictions loom. I'm not going to read this whole thing. Americans are skipping payments on mortgages, auto loans, and other bills. Normally, that could mean massive foreclosures, evictions, car repossessions, and people's credits getting destroyed. But much of that has been put on pause. Help from Congress and leniency from lenders have kept impending financial disaster at bay for millions of people, but that may not last for long. The problem is that these efforts aim to create a financial bridge to the future for the people who've lost their income in the pandemic. But the bridge is only half built. For one thing, the help still isn't reaching many people who need it. My wife has filed certified every week for her unemployment for 10 weeks now, and they have done nothing, says Jonathan Baird of Brewston, Tennessee. We've struggled. Baird is a disabled veteran not injured in wartime who gets a small disability pension. When the pandemic hit, his wife lost her job as a home health aide. That was most of their income, and like many other contract workers, she has run into long delays trying to collect unemployment. Meanwhile, Baird says his mortgage company told him that he didn't qualify for a federal program to postpone payments. Many homeowners have been giving wrong or misleading information from lenders about that, and it appears that that is what happened in Baird's case. Baird also called Ford to try to get a break on the payments for his pickup truck, which I contacted, when I contacted them, they told me that there was nothing they could do, he said. Just basically make your payment or suffer the late fees. He says a call center worker told him that he didn't qualify for any help because he was late on a car payment last year. When NPR contacted Ford, the company said that that is not its policy. And after reviewing the case, the company is now letting Baird skip his next car payment, which he says is a big help. We're paycheck to paycheck like most people, he says. And when you take away that paycheck, especially for this length of time, we have to make the decision, a vehicle or food. Ford says the company is allowing many customers hurt financially during the pandemic-related shutdowns to skip payments. And millions of people are getting help from all kinds of lenders. According to the latest available numbers from the Credit Bureau TransUnion, about 3 million auto loans and 15 million credit card accounts are in some kind of program to let people skip or make partial payments. Those are probably low estimates. According to the analytics company Black Knight, 4.75 million homeowners, or 9% of all mortgages, have entered into forbearance plans. I'm not going to read the rest of this because we've been predicting this for a while now. I'll read this one last part right here. 25% of Latinos have already fallen behind with their payments, she says. 28% of African Americans have fallen behind. That compares to 12% of whites that have fallen behind. So we see Black people are leading in delinquency, okay? We talked about the pandemic and how badly it's gonna hit Black people. This is what we're seeing. 28%, they're the leaders in default on staple payments, okay? Cars and car loans and mortgages, okay? It's a big problem.
Not only leaders in default, when they call to get help, they're the ones who most likely are not going to get the help that they need.
Yeah. Yeah. But people will sit up here and pretend that doom and gloom. I think not. This is serious. Okay. Just go out there and get a job. Where are you going to work at? 35 plus million people are filed for unemployment. What are you talking about?
35 million people file for unemployment. And as you said, Baird's wife has been filing for 10 weeks. And guess what? She hasn't received paycheck yet.
Yeah, and it's a Mazunga on top of that. Mazunga getting shafted.
Yep.
Going into an election year. Not very good. Not very good at all. Mazunga's getting railroaded. Like I said before last week, you look at the manosphere and people are, you don't see a whole lot of super chats going off. You don't see a whole lot of cash apps going through. People are holding on to their wallets. Let's go to this next one from the Wall Street Journal. William Mark lost nearly all of the $800,000 he put into ETNs. Wow. Wow. Bankrupt in just 2 weeks. Individual investors get burned by collapse of complex securities. Nothing to do with the guy from California on the panel. When William Mark decided to get back into investing after 2008 financial crisis, he looked past stocks and bonds, needing to play catch up with his retirement portfolio. The piping engineer decided to bet on a complicated product he hoped would deliver double-digit annual returns. It worked so well, earning him 18% a year in dividends on average, that he eventually poured $800,000 into the investments called leverage exchange traded notes, or ETNs. When the coronavirus pandemic hit, he lost almost every penny. This is America, man. This is America. I'm not going to be able to read the whole story, but this is America. All these people who want to say the Black Brain Trust talks about doom and gloom and Black Gnostic speaks BGS, he speaks doom and gloom. What do you call this? That's not doom and gloom. He lost every penny, $800,000. Every penny is gone. We just looked at the other article. Mazungas has been filing for 10 weeks, can't get no reciprocity from the government. Ain't no unemployment for them. Cars being repossessed. Mortgages, not being paid. Who needs a UBI? We don't need a UBI. That causes inflation. What are you talking about?
This guy is an example of what can happen to America, most Americans, and especially those who think their privilege is going to help them going forward. Because he lost his money in 2008. And it's because something similar. It's not the same thing, but it's something similar to what happened then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like he couldn't see the writing on the wall. It happened to me before. It could happen again. And we as Black people don't look at these kind of things at all. We like to, forget that only yesterday it rained. And when it rained, the water came through the roof. But today is sunny, so tomorrow is not, it's going to be sunny tomorrow, but it's not. This is an economy where they're not even considering their own poor people, or not even the poor people, middle class people, for instance, because this guy had to be middle class in order to be having that kind of money to spend.
Yeah.
He owns a business, so they will sell you anything at all. And I've seen people who bought into things like that, and then somebody turned around and bought a put on that guy, and when he lost all his money, they made a ton of money. And that's how the way this market is working. If you're in there, you gotta be watching yourself. You gotta know You can't know everything about the market, but you got to educate yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to the next article. All right, this is from Bloomberg.com. Federal workers see risk to them in Trump push to reopen U.S. As Donald Trump presses states to reopen, government workers and their unions say they are increasingly concerned that their bosses will force them back to the office without sufficient protection. Agencies' approaches to returning to the offices have been uneven, say. Although the Securities and Exchange Commission chief told many workers to plan on staying home through at least mid-July, the Internal Revenue Service has called back 11,000 workers to begin processing paper tax returns, responding to a backlog of mail and answering taxpayer calls. Workers at some agencies who are already back or who never left report a wide variation in their employees' attitude towards safety. For starters, there are no plans for broad testing or contact tracing. The haphazard approach has led to a confusing and often contradictory messages being sent to more than 2 million federal workers, 85% of whom live outside the greater Washington, D.C. region. Their lives shouldn't be taken for granted, and that's the way we feel right now, said Everett Kelly, president of the American Federation of Government Employees, which represents about 700,000 government workers. Agencies are trying to appease some in the hierarchy by saying, okay, we're going to reopen. But the reality is it's just not feasible. The government dilemma is one of the many large companies have struggled to address. Banks, including Citigroup Incorporated and Goldman Sachs Group Incorporated, are trying to figure out how employees can safely return, exploring policies from alternating teams that would rotate through offices on a staggered basis to seeking ways to better monitor employees' health so another outbreak can be quickly thwarted. In a sign that telework is here to stay, Twitter Incorporated has said some staff they can work from home permanently. Okay. This is what's going on. Okay, we're in June right now, and they still have not come up with a robust strategy for returning people to work. Some people may never return to work, according to Twitter. Don't need you in the office, causing more risk. That's what they're saying. What value does that person serve? Okay.
In my opinion, you know, they have to improve the testing so that you report to work in the morning, they give you a test. Remember at the beginning of this thing we were talking about a test similar to what they do when they pull you over for DUI.
Yep.
They have to have a test, something like that, or a test like what they do for like my stepdad, diabetes. Morning he get up, just prick his finger, put it on that little thing, and you see if his blood sugar, you know, where his blood sugar is at.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of test that you have to have. You come in the morning, you blow into this thing, and if it shows your, you know, antibodies or this or that, or you know, if you got the thing, you got temperature and all that, whatever they decide, you know what, these are the signs of this COVID or whatever they the hell is going, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Then you report to work, you say, you know what, go to the doctor. If you test positive, go to the doctor. The doctor will do a more elaborate test, and if you're fine, you come to work tomorrow morning. But they don't have that kind of test, and nobody is making it. Nobody's making the test because everybody is into the vaccine because they think the vaccine is going to be, you know, the way to go. And when you get a vaccine, when the next change come about, then they're going to have to make a vaccine for that one too. So they're running down the street like almost blind. When you bump into something, that's when you change course. This kind of foolishness, they bring people back. Um, that herd immunity that they're talking about. Who the people who are gonna die as a result of that? Hears about their opinion? You know.
The Chinese actually have. They were able to handle this. They were able to test a lot of people. I mean, they're having problems. They still have some issues. That's why they said the second wave came and they had to deal with that because there are a couple of different strains that are out there. The South Koreans have done it, but they've had a constant set of testing, a constant wave of testing, which has kept things kind of moving. And the big problem here that we have in this country, which is operating almost like a third world country really now, we have not had widespread testing. If we had that, we could definitely get a much better handle on this thing. That's why we're over here, running around like chickens without our heads and making highly ridiculous decisions because we don't know where we are with everyone, and that's if we had wider spread testing and more people tested, it would make a huge difference as to how we would be moving with this.
Yeah. The thing is, China was able to cordon off a whole entire city and basically shut that down. The United States didn't even have the power to do something like that.
Well, they shut Beijing down. There's a great video on that. I actually hear, I think it's called The Corporation or something. I saw it some weeks ago, and they had the way they had it. They would test. They had people every 300 yards. They had somebody taking your temperature and all of that, and they had they had everyone in the emergency room was filling up. Yeah, they had a lot of problems, but what they were doing was they were putting a very serious, had a very serious grid going out there where you had to get checked every literally from almost corner to corner, and you couldn't get on the subway or anything else like that unless you were normal. You had to have masks on. So, they had such a serious protocol about this. And they handled it in the first world way, and it was still a tough problem. We're nowhere close to that. We're nowhere close to that. Yeah. It's America. I mean, when history looks back on this, they're going to look at this like, man, what were we doing? I mean, this is really bad. I mean, we should be doing a much better job than what we're doing at this stage. And we're talking about opening back up. It's just, it's kind of doesn't make sense, but this is where we are right now. So I guess this is a door we're going to have to walk through.
Yeah.
I know in the Philippines, I know people in the Philippines, intercity travel, inter-island travel. Taiwan, the same thing, intercity travel. Next door, the city next door. You go next door, when you come back, you get tested. Every morning, my girlfriend go to work. Every morning, Taiwan, she get tested. Before she starts work, she walks off the street into the building. There's someone there. So it's not happening here. You're not serious about it.
I don't think these guys, I'm looking at some of these conspiracy theorists that are out here saying some of the stuff that they've said, and I'm not going to repeat much of it. But man, I swear to God, some of these nuts seem like they almost were right. I mean, just the way how this thing is going. I mean, this thing is really crazy, and we don't seem to be pushing to get more tests around. I'm not understanding that. Knowing that there's going to be another wave coming, know that there's a few different viruses out here right now dipping around that have morphed from the original one that hit us. They know this. I read one article that said, the virus is coming out. There's a weaker strain out here. Yeah, I'm sure there's a weaker strain, but what they're not telling you about is the stronger strain that may be out here as well. That could be taking people down, and folks are not really talking about it. We don't know. Do we know where we are with this? It's crazy, man. So I would hope that we would get a better response from our government and from the state and from our state houses, but I don't think that's going to be forthcoming. So I'm just going to say for everybody here, including myself, everyone here, this man, arm up, man, arm up, and just don't believe anything you're hearing right now because I'm not trusting Jack. And with these riots or whatever, or just demonstrations where a lot of people are outside now and demonstrating out close, I think we're going to see something coming out of that as well. So,
yeah, when I was in I was traveling at the beginning of the pandemic in Africa. You got checked pretty, probably about 3 times minimum before leaving the airport. So I don't know. When I got to back to the United States at Logan International, they checked you once and that was it. They asked you 1 or 2 questions. You know, did you travel to China? Like my boarding pass would tell you exactly where I came from. It really, the United States dropped the ball on this, and they don't want to accept that they lost, you know, on this one. And like, you know, Nagone says a third world country. I would say it's more of a failed state. It's a failed state. I mean, you expect things like this to happen in Somalia or Yemen or you know, Afghanistan or something like that, but we're operating no different than they are.
I have to agree. And when we see the first world responders, to see what they're doing, it's markedly different than what we're doing here. Markedly different. Markedly different. You know,
Yeah.
China tests everybody every 300 yards, blocks cordoned off. You know, so, you know, people who wanted to give something to maybe a relative they had down the street, they had to pass it over a fence and this kind of stuff. I mean, they took it super serious. You know, you got the president walking up, it's China, China. His big, dumb, stupid looking ass up in there looking crazy with everybody running around here with nothing going on except folks just code going into the hospital and folks running around talking about we opened up states because we don't have enough money. I mean, it's just, oh my God, man, this is craziness. I mean, the history on this, boy, it's not good. Doesn't have us looking good, man. Doesn't have us looking good. Man, we are looking terrible right now. And then with this whole situation with the with this man getting killed by the police and all that. I mean, this is it's like a perfect storm coming up, but it's showing you the belly of what's going on here. The true face of what we've got going on here, man. Man, this is not good. Not good. Very, very bad look for us. Very, very terrible, terrible look. And wave 2 comes around, and we're going to look around to see end of September, October, November. What's that going to look like? Oh boy. Anyway.
All right, next item on the docket is from the South China Morning Post. Is China preparing to decouple from the U.S.? China's leadership has made it clear to its people that the world will become more dangerous and they must be prepared for hard times. Okay, sounds like a decoupling to me. Beijing's decision not to set an annual GDP target for 2020 for the first time since 2002 is a sign it is putting stability ahead of growth as part of its preparations for an escalating conflict with the United States. Economic development has always been the central theme for Beijing since it established diplomatic relations with the US in 1979. But this year it has given priority to the job creation and tackling poverty. The coronavirus outbreak might appear to have been the reason for the shift, but the underlying factor is the tensions with the US. COVID-19 offered a preview of what a decoupling of China and US might look like. Aircraft grounded, cargo flows disrupted, value chains broken, goodwill and cooperation lost, blame games started. Both countries have suffered heavy human and economic loss from the coronavirus, yet that did not inspire them to work together. Instead, hostility and rivalry has thrived and neither wants to blink first. The Chinese leadership has made it clear to its people that the world will become more dangerous and they must be prepared for hard times. As such, the government is saving its economic policy ammunition. While the stimulus plans introduced in the US, Germany, Japan, and France exceed 10% of their national GDP and interest rates have been cut to the bone, Beijing stopped at just 1 trillion yuan or $140 billion worth of special treasury bonds and 1.6 trillion yuan of additional local government bonds. In total, about 2.6% of GDP. Interest rates in China, 2.7% on 10-year bonds. are some of the highest among major economies. We talked about this before, probably a few weeks ago. There was someone who was trying to challenge the idea that China is broke or they're hemorrhaging. They're not. This statement right here kind of points to that idea that China is actually fairly healthy economically speaking. They can kind of weather this storm throughout the end of the year. China's 6.6% defense spending boost, lowest in 3 decades. China's budget fiscal deficit has increased to 3.6% of GDP for 2020, but the larger deficit is mainly from tax-free cuts instead of increased fiscal expenses, except for an increased military spending. Beijing is calling on provincial and local authorities to tighten their belts, which is unusual for a government that has huge assets and can increase spending at any time through quantitative easing. So why is the government, which is known for intervening in the economy, being so restrained? It is bracing itself for a perceived period of turbulence and hardship as its relationship with the US turns sour. It is putting jobs and social stability on top of its agenda instead of growth. Beijing is refraining from excessive spending, eliminating sources of potential instability, making appeals to the most vulnerable social groups, and saving its power for a bigger test. Against that backdrop, the National People's Congress passed the national security legislation on Hong Kong. Beijing knew the bill would anger the US, but did it anyway. Hong Kong is known as China's gateway to the international capital market and the largest offshore yuan market, but Beijing is ready to trade losses on financial and economic front for a potential gain on a fortified national security fence. All this points to suggesting that Beijing is preparing for the possibility of decoupling from the US, even if it doesn't necessarily want to. The threat of a new Cold War is clouding the world. The theme of life for 1 or 2 generations of people on both sides of the Pacific may shift from growth and prosperity to struggle and confrontation. China and the US have yet to collide totally, but the moment is drawing near. So, I've talked about this many times before on here. And I would say we as well, because Complex is probably included on this discussion as well. Those nice cheap laptops and TVs that people like, those flat screen TVs, 50-inch screen for $300, $400. I've been seeing supply chain increases in some of the reports that I've come across. Get ready to start spending $700, $800, $900 for a 50-inch flat screen right now. Let's go to Best Buy's website and see what it costs for a 50-inch. Let me see my screen real quick. This is what's going on right now, okay? A Samsung 50-inch is going for $399 roughly. Get ready to see that sucker go right up to about $600, $700, okay? If they're gonna increase the tariffs on import of Chinese goods as a part of the Cold War strategy, you can bet your bottom dollar that all electronics will increase substantially. The iPhone is $1,000 now, the new one. Yeah, well, get ready to spend about $1,200 to $1,500 on the new iPhone when it comes out. Guaranteed. You want a new iPad? Cough up a lung, man.
Man, these iPhones are costing what a laptop costs.
So it's a mortgage payment for some people.
Certainly is.
Hey, you gonna get into the rent to own business, Mike?
Rent to own.
Yeah.
I'm getting out and put my money in Barbados. I'm out of here, man. They can keep this. Yeah, they can keep this, man. This is a carcass. I mean, well, I should say it's a carcass. It has cancer. This thing has cancer to it. And people are pretending that you can just like open up a barbershop and have a garage sale and you can make money that way. You are out of your mind if you think that that is sustainable over the next presidential cycle. That is not sustainable. Barbershops are increasing their the price on haircuts now.
They have to.
Yeah, you're talking 60, 70 bucks for a haircut. I think I'll just grow an afro like Craig Mack.
In the blood. Yeah, man. Still.
Mm-hmm.
Still. Unsustainable. But see, so much of this is also being leadership is a big part of this problem. Because if you had the proper leadership really in place and handling some of these issues with China in a way that's what I would say amenable, we don't really need to have a coming conflict with them, because what we're trying to stop, we're not going to be able to stop long term. We're not going to be able to do it. So moving aggressively with them is not going to work. Not for the long term. It's not going to happen. Asia already has China as their number one player. That's who they're buying from. That's the number one market right there in Asia. Africa's going to be playing a big role. Certainly, Europe wants to play. Europe wants some of that action, because at the end of the day, they're not prospering. They're going to want to have investment coming in there, and then it's going to, when it comes down to survival, people know when it comes down to survival, they'll folks will go wherever they have to go. That's going to happen. The game we're playing, it's, the leadership here, these guys are not handling this thing right. Better leadership can handle this problem. And I don't know, Mike, if you have anything to say to that, but I'm going to put it on that to a large extent.
Well, they could have figured this out back in 2016. They didn't have to. It didn't have to get to this point.
No,
they didn't have to get to this point. They could have been, had they started the process for a UBI back in November, December. Even if they started December 1st, they would have had a softer landing rather than a hard landing. They would have landed on their belly, but they wouldn't have been, face first into it. I don't know. I guess they thought that they could weather the storm, man, and the storm took their umbrella and said, "Fuck your umbrella." So this is the consequences of just poor foresight. Let me jump to this next item, and this is from TechCrunch.com. Zoom's earnings to test hot tech valuations. Zoom started off 2020 with around $69 per share. Today, it is worth $179.48 ahead of the start of today's trading. CrowdStrike started the year at a little over $49 per share. Today, it is worth $87.81 per share. The business focus, but consumer-friendly video chat service, Zoom, and the cybersecurity focus, CrowdStrike, are perfect examples of the updraft that SaaS businesses have ridden this year. With both firms reporting earnings at the same time, we'll get notes on the work from home trend and how it is impacting services that help make remote work possible. CrowdStrike's earnings will inform us on how the cybersecurity space is performing. Are businesses shelling out more than expected to keep their networks and employees safe when so many are out of the office? If Zoom and CrowdStrike can report results that disappoint investors, they could do more than just deflate their own shares. Missed earnings reports from either could puncture SaaS valuations more broadly, perhaps impacting private valuations for companies that are in the market for new capital. Why? Prominence and timing. Investors expect CrowdStrike to report $165.3 million in revenue in its most recent quarter, generating 0.06%, 6-cent per share loss. The company generated $96.1 million in revenue in the year ago quarter, giving the company an expected growth rate of just over 72%. Turning to Zoom, investors expect $202 million in revenue in its most recent quarter, leading to a profit of 0.99 cents per share. But the firm had noted before that it was seeing rising free usage. We could impact its gross profits. In the year ago period, Zoom generated $122 million in revenue, giving the firm an expected growth rate of around 65.5%. So Zoom and CrowdStrike, two of the hottest tech stocks right now. I would probably throw Cisco in there as well because they're a networking company and everybody needs wireless access points and routers and switches and things of that nature. So Microsoft as well, everybody's working from home, so everybody needs a laptop, and most laptops run on Windows. So this is where we are right now. This is where we are, so pay attention to the market long term.
Agreed.
One of the problems that they have, one of the problems that US have, is that you need to look at the long-term trends, not just the short-term. And everybody in the market, every business is built on short-term gains.
Well, it depends which markets you're looking at. Some are definitely more on the short term that people are playing it. Some markets are much more on the long term gains, like the utilities and so forth. But yeah, on the whole, it's the market. It's a racket. As a broker, so it's a racket. There's no doubt about it. So it is about what you can make, kind of in the relative short term. But you can invest for the long term as well. And I think that's what Mike and I were talking about here, which I think it makes a lot of sense, is to follow the trends and really and be aware. Like DE, you might be aware of a lot of things that are going on in a lot of different industries. You may play for short, but if you are knowledgeable of, let's say you follow one industry, the tech industry, or something else like that, very closely, that'll put you in a better position to play a little bit longer, and you'll be able, because what that will mean is you'll be able to see a little bit further down the road, just because of what you're studying and what you're looking at and the trends.
Yeah, but okay, you mentioned the tech industry.
Yeah, for example,
the tech industry is changing so quickly that you have to kind of like like Zoom. Think for instance, you're talking about Zoom. Before Google got rid of it, it's Zoom was just a bit player. Suddenly it blew up. In less than a year, people have gone Zoom. You know what I'm saying? Zoom is now the communication. You're zooming instead of going to Google.
But there was some people. There were some people in play who in this play who saw this as a more long-term game. They saw that this thing was going to scale a lot longer. Like let's say Google got rid of Hangouts. That might have been a mistake. They should have kept Hangouts around.
Yeah, but they're trying to bring it back.
Yeah, they're trying to bring it back now, but it's like other players have come in and have filled in the breach.
Yeah,
that they left. They left a huge breach there, and these other players have come in. I mean, you got sucker laid shit like StreamYard. It's highly sucker laid,
right?
But it's out there. Getting play now. Zoom's been around for a while. Zoom is not new. It's not a new app. It's not a new application. It's been around for a bit. Mike, how long has Zoom been around? About 10 years?
Zoom came out in 2011.
See, but it was a bit
Yeah.
clear because of Google. It was a bit clear, and then Google opened the door, and then this pandemic now just knocked down the wall.
That's how shit works, man. That's how shit works. You stay around and you invest long enough, or you see things long enough. You see some things look like they ain't gonna be hot. The next thing you know, boom,
Boom.
you know, unexpected events or events that people may be, might be looking at. You know, you've heard Bill Gates talk about pandemics for a while. You've heard other people talking about there will be pandemics that are going to come up and start cold hammering people here in this country. And some people were trying to predict when this was going to happen, in fact. At the end of the day, here we are looking at, this pandemic that many people were kind of predicting. And then what markets would benefit from this. And you have people who kind of anticipate these kind of things. So, not everybody's going to see it. Only a small number are, but those who do, will profit in a huge way. So, you had long-term players with this Zoom who saw that this thing is gonna rock, and they put their money on a pretty sure bet. Didn't look like a sure bet then. It looked like it was a decent bet, but it's a sure bet right now. If you're more than doubling, and people who probably got in at its IPO price and are still holding it, those guys are making. They're flush with cash right now on their stock.
Yeah.
Flush. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Next item on the docket is from CNN. U.S. black-white inequality in 6-star charts. The nationwide protests following the death of a black man, George Floyd, at the hands of a white police officers has once again shown a spotlight on the long-standing racial divide in the U.S. This, along with the coronavirus pandemic that has disproportionately killed Black Americans, has drawn renewed attention to the persistent inequities in wealth, health, and opportunity between Blacks and whites despite economic prosperity of recent years. Those disparities exist because of a long history of policies that excluded and exploited Black Americans, said Valerie Wilson, director of the program on race, ethnicity, and the economy at the Economic Policy Institute. Racial inequality has become so normalized in a society, she said. It's what we expect to see. That's the way it's been for so long. The numbers are staggering. Wealth. The typical non-Hispanic Black household has accumulated only about 1/10 the wealth of a typical non-Hispanic white family. That gap stems in part from lower rates of home ownership and smaller inheritances among Blacks. The difference is wider now than it was at the start of the century, according to an analysis by the Brookings Institution. And wealth is all the more important to these days, since it serves as a safety net during economic downturns. So income. Another reason why it's more difficult for Black families to save and build wealth is because they typically earn less than whites. Since 2000, the wage gap between Blacks and non-Hispanic whites has grown significantly, even when educational attainment is factored in, according to a report by the Economic Policy Institute. Black workers' wages grew slowly from 2000 until last year, when they finally exceeded 2000 and 2007 levels across the earnings spectrum. Median household income among Blacks is also lower than it is for non-Hispanic whites. Okay. Unemployment. One area that has improved is the gap in unemployment rates. For decades, the jobless rate for Blacks was typically more than twice that for whites. But the gap narrowed to the smallest differential on record last year. That is, until the coronavirus outbreak. In February, the rate stood at 3.1% for whites and a near record low of 5.8% for Blacks. The economic downturn triggered by the pandemic.
Sorry.
The economic downturn triggered by the pandemic has actually narrowed the gap even more since the unemployment rate has spiked so dramatically across all races. Also, Black Americans make up a disproportionate share of essential employees, including those who work in public transit, trucking, warehouse, and postal service, healthcare and grocery, convenience and drugstores, according to a Center for Economic Policy and Research report, which has meant many people have kept their jobs, but at the risk of falling ill.
Yeah.
In April, the unemployment rate for Black workers soared to 16.7%, the highest since early 2010. But it was a record 14.2% for white workers. Typically, in recessions, the unemployment rate gap widens. Poverty. The nation's poverty rate of 11.8% in 2018 was significantly lower for the first time since 2007. Before the Great Recession, according to the most recent Census Bureau data, the poverty rate for Blacks was 20.8% compared to 8.1% for non-Hispanic whites. Both have trended downward during the economic revival of recent years. Healthcare. The current pandemic has also laid bare the inequities in the nation's healthcare system. One reason why Black Americans have been hit harder is because they are less likely to have health insurance. This holds true even among the employed. Black workers are 60% more likely to be uninsured than white workers, the Economic Policy Institute found.
That's what the whole ACA was about. And people were talking about, oh, healthcare, Obama ain't done nothing for nobody. Fools. Fools. People are fools. Anyway.
Coronavirus. Along with the lack of coverage, Black Americans have the highest rates of chronic illness, including diabetes, high blood pressure, and obesity. All these conditions contribute to making the coronavirus pandemic all the more deadly for Blacks than for non-Hispanic whites, who account for more than 60% of the population, but only about 53% of deaths from the virus. So, the inequality gap between Blacks and whites, man, when people think about these riots and or the protesting and demonstrations, it wasn't always about just that one person, George Floyd, being killed, but it was compounded with other issues, such as the inequality. People are just angry and they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, so to speak. So it was a straw that broke the camel's back. But so when it comes to inequality, this is not something that just happened during the Trump administration. This has been going on a long time before he even thought about being president. And neither party nor the federal government cared to do anything about it. Kind of like it like this.
Well, I think, when Clinton, when he understood that there was a huge wealth gap, he understood that 2/3 of most wealth that's accumulated in this country comes from home ownership. He put together some programs, to help more minorities, Black people, and so forth, to own homes, and to have them federally backed, and also not be that easily or that subject to being redlined. But still, even out of that, the redlining system that was endemic in our banking system and so forth, had a lot of us with predatory loans. And what do those predatory loans mean? That you got it at one rate, and then you had this big balloon payment coming up later on that you probably wouldn't be able to take care of. And that did happen. And then when the 2008 crash came, even a lot of your loans and stuff like that you had were defaulted on or taken from you, and you got wiped out. So that whole program, and it was not designed to really help you, because even if you had a 700 credit score for many Black people, 700-800 credit score, you still got a predatory loan, which the government and these guys permitted to go down, which should have never happened. But so there was a big scam in that, and we all kind of know how that happened. So that hit us very hard on the wealth side of the fence. What bothers me is, we saw the Obama healthcare plan, and you even had some Negroes. Oh, that's why this plan is socialist. I'm talking crazy, but now you really see what was really affecting you and why. There was a healthcare plan for you that was really designed to deal you in. Because at the end of the day, we're looking at what those overall effects have been, and he was trying to find some way of trying to affect that, and what's going on now with the unemployment game and all that is just a part of the system. That's why it's part of what's going on in this system, and it's hitting everyone. So that's why it's important that we have channels and stuff that can talk about employment. Areas that you can get into that can really help you to kind of possibly get around this, because information is what's going to help us here. IT. We talk about the trucking and so forth, which is big. There are areas that we can get into, to stay gainfully employed and look to possibly avoid some of what's going to be coming down the pike in the next couple of years. And healthcare is going to be a very key thing. So I would hope that Black people really understand that, them trying to eliminate your healthcare and destroy that is really trying to eliminate and destroy you. So hopefully, we can shore up on that. And then, of course, really look towards employment and look towards the areas that are open to us that we can get into, that we talk about here in the Brain Trust a lot. And maybe one or two other channels that I'm aware of that really get into this kind of heavily, where we can kind of meet those areas and kind of meet those demands, because those areas are still wide open. So we have to talk about that. But as far as where we are right now as a group, we're definitely taking some hits, and those will continue to happen if we don't communicate with each other a lot more and kind of wisen up and really start taking advantage of some of the opportunities that I think we'll be opening up in this situation. As much as we can say things are bad in this chaotic times, there are opportunities. So I just want us to be thinking about that as well.
See, one of the problems. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say we got Black Wizard on the panel as well. Go ahead, DE.
One of the problems we have is that, like the goal says, you got opportunities being presented every day, presenting themselves that people should take advantage of. Like now, for instance, every night, Mike advertises, you can get this free lesson. You can get free lessons here, you can get free lessons there, because computerization is coming. It's here now, but it's going to expand. But nobody's listening. When I say nobody is listening, the majority of us is not listening. If you are a bus driver and you got kids, your kids should be at night when they come home from school, sitting in front of that computer going over these lessons that are free of charge. You know what I'm saying? But we want a ball in our hands. We want a football, basketball. We want a mic in your hand. And guess what is happening now? Coronavirus has shut down all of those venues. No concerts. You're a up and coming rapper. What happened to your song? What happened to your rapping career? You know what I'm saying? You're up and coming ball player. Guess what? Even colleges not playing basketball now. High school's not playing basketball now. So what are your options? Nobody's even looking at what are their options now. They're not paying attention to what's going on.
Hey, Black Wizard, you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were you guys were up here talking about COVID and how it's going to change kind of the social dynamic and stuff like that a little earlier. And I just had something I wanted to add to that, because somebody said something, I forgot who it was, but they said like, oh, these conspiracy theorists, I'm starting to think, maybe they were on to something. It's not to say like, whatever, but I got some information here, and I just wanted to bring it up to the panel to share. Is it possible to share my screen?
Yeah, you can't share your screen. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So if you're trolling like GitHub and like just looking at people, I guess the programmers, like software developers kind of throwing stuff at each other back and forth. I've been kind of like in and out of Ethereum's, but I wasn't really paying that much attention until this YouTuber brought something up. I think his name is he's one of the crypto YouTubers. I forget his name. I think it's Chico Crypto or something like that. But he brought up that there's a digital identity project going on that was working in tandem with COVID and the blockchain with Microsoft. So me being the skeptic that I am, I was like, well, I troll GitHub. I'm gonna go look it up myself. And I got it up here. I'm just gonna read something from it real quick.
You can share your screen if you want.
Oh, okay. Let me. It's still grayed out for me.
It's grayed out.
Yeah.
Let me see. You should be able to do it now. You have co-host privileges.
Okay. Yep. There we go. Okay. Y'all got me?
Yep.
Yep.
In the Ethereum Oasis baseline, and just to give you kind of a hint of what's going on there, it's like a group of companies, on the SSC and the healthcare and individuals, can't pronounce that name, have committed to building a proof. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Committed to building a proof of principle in a week to show the feasibility of taking medical test records such as COVID-19 testing and baselining the data with a lab, providing the provider and the individual such that the individual can use a personal password manager, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes down to if you scroll down a little bit and you go down here somewhere, it starts talking about what that really means. So it says, just before the patient gets tested by the machine, they offer the opportunity to get the test results baseline to their private database, blah, 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 blah. Now say the patient wants to go to Coachella 2021, and their new policy is you have to have shown that you actually had COVID and recovered from it in weeks or months prior to the event. Imagining a scenario, blah, 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 blah. The patient goes to Coachella's website and provides the baseline proof from password one, the technology, and it basically matches up with it's basically saying it's matching up with your medical records to show that you actually had been through the testing in a sort of digital, in a sort of a tandem working with the digital identification. I know a lot of people think this kind of stuff is fantasy kind of stuff, but they're talking about 2021. You know what I'm saying? This is something that's happening now, and I got my other article. They're talking about machine learning could check if you're social distancing properly at work. So this is the kind of stuff that is actually, this is actually happening. They're thinking about this stuff already. It's not to say that, every conspiracy you hear out there is true, but, just, keep your ear to the ground and kind of listen to the stuff that's going on. Cause this stuff is actually happening. They're actually already thinking about this stuff, like thermometers that can keep track of your temperature, from this very same kind of machine learning atmosphere and stuff like that. They're already thinking about this stuff over here in the West. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention as well.
Yeah, we covered the MIT article a few weeks back.
Oh, you covered this one?
Yeah, we covered that article back in April. But
I'll snap.
No, it's cool. It's cool. It's just that you're paying attention. But You can stop sharing your screen if you finish.
Okay.
The point for us to really have these discussions is to bring awareness, right? And I'm not the conspiracy speculator type of guy out here. I really work off of cited sources, and what happens in a lot of times in the manosphere, in the Black manosphere, so to speak, is that people are just throwing out whatever they can just to, just to say they're the guy who brought this information to them. In reality, there's no sources that that can be cited for their commentary and their speculation. And so when we present stuff on here, man, we really cite the sources. That's why we have a docket in the description of the video for everyone to follow along with, because then you can't just say, we're conspiracy nuts, because we've been accused in recent weeks of actually being doom and gloom and speculators. And we're not speculating anything. We're not speculating anything.
Yeah.
I would have to say that because I was listening to an older live stream we had from about 7 months ago, and almost everything that's going down right now, we had literally talked about it, and it was been predicted. And I was like, wow. I was like, we didn't predict so much the COVID per se, but we did predict, economic crash in 2020. 2020 to 2021, at least it would at least roll out for that long. We're seeing that going down right now. A lot of job loss. Corporations, dealing with some, dealing with a lot of layoffs and a lot of restructuring, and businesses getting hammered pretty hard. And I don't want to get into a lot more, but we spoke on this and the reasons why we would think that this would happen, and we're seeing it. So, and that was based on a lot of what we were looking at, reading, and some of the portents that we were we were reading. We were reading the tea leaves, man. We were reading them, and then that's what was happening. So it comes from information. So I know a lot of people say that it's a doom and gloom kind of a game, but it's not. That's why I'm pretty much only really interested in kind of dealing with channels like this. A lot of the other stuff going on, it really doesn't interest me that much. But this stuff right here is pretty important, and this is the stuff that's impacting us the most. This is what's having the biggest impact on our lives, and I want to be in this as opposed to some of the other stuff people are getting into.
All right,
Go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead.
I did the same recap, Nego, and when I thought about it, I said, you know what? Damn, boy, they say that we doom and gloom, but we weren't even close. When I say we weren't close, like if we predicted that unemployment would be 5%, unemployment was 30%. So we were giving them good news in reality.
Yeah, I mean, in some respect, but we were dead on the money on a lot of stuff, man. I'm sitting, so I'm following exactly what you're saying, because things actually are almost getting a little rougher than we thought. But let's put it like this, the 2025 and the 2053 and all that we're talking about. And I said it's going to hit us a lot faster than we might think, and it definitely is. So this has been a massive accelerator here. So that's why we really want to talk sense to people right now, and this is going to affect brothers, as you've seen. It's hitting us hard. We're affected by everything that goes wrong in this society, much worse than others. And it's time for us to anticipate and prepare and make some other make some other moves that are going to keep us out of the jaws of the lion, as opposed to just climbing right in there and just being lunch. So that's what we're going to have to, that's what we're thinking about. That's what we're about here. And, we're going to stay on that point. Anyway, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, let me go to the last item on the docket from the World Economic Forum. 5 charts reveal key racial inequality gaps in the U.S.
Oh man, and right before you get into that, I got an article from the World Economic Forum too. I don't know if you've shared it on the channel already, but it's about LGBT being the kind of like the director for the economies that's going to prosper after the crisis. Have you already shared that?
We wouldn't share something like that, but thanks for letting us know.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I was only saying that to say that this is the direction that the elite wants to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me finish this article. America is experiencing some of its most widespread civil unrest in the following death of George Floyd. I think we've already covered this in the CNN piece, but I'll go over it again. Number one, wide educational gaps. In the 70 years since the U.S. Supreme Court ruled racial segregation of public schools unconstitutional, progress is improving in improving racial education divides has been slow and uneven. Gaps have narrowed by 30 to 40% when compared to the 1970s, but divides remain large. Number two, limited access to improved earnings and mobility. For people of color in America, education does not provide the same economic return as it might for other groups. People of color, particularly women of color, typically have lower salaries than white and male workers with similar levels of education. I always find this to be very, very interesting because they make it, it says male workers. Why don't you just compare women to women? It's not like, black men are, 10 feet tall and they stand at the gates of IBM and, Bank of America stopping women from coming in. That's who are you talking about here? Let's make it apples to apples. Income inequality is also stifling intergenerational mobility, the American dream of children having a higher standard of living than their parents. Research from economist Raj Chetty in 2016 showed that at age 30, people born in 1940 had around 90% of a chance of out-earning their parents. But for people born in 1980, this chance had fallen to half. Okay, so you Gen Xers, you late Gen Xers, more than likely you live with your mother. Number three, outsized unemployment burdens. A lack of access to higher education or skilled work can make people of color more vulnerable to unemployment during downturns and periods of economic growth. As researchers explained, in one report from the Russell Sage Foundation and the Stanford Center on Poverty and Inequality, an African American cannot count on education as providing the same relief against the risk of unemployment that it provides to other groups. This is very true. Number four, healthcare insurance and life expectancy dynamics. Life expectancy gaps between white Americans and people of color have begun to narrow, but inequities still exist thanks to the range of socioeconomic factors such as income inequality, access to health insurance, and adequate health care. The disproportionate impact that COVID-19 has had on Black Americans demonstrates some of the vulnerabilities the population faces. Number five, Black imprisonment in the US has fallen but remains disproportionate. The imprisonment rate among Black Americans has fallen by over a third since 2006 and stands at around 1,500 prisoners for every 100,000 adults. But Black Americans remain far more likely to be in prison than Hispanic and white Americans. The figures are particularly stark among some age groups. In the 35 to 39 age bracket, about 1 in 20 Black men were in state or federal prison in 2018, 1 in 20. Black Americans made up a third of the sentenced prison population in 2018, nearly triple their representation in the US adult population as a whole. They also make up a disproportionate number of fatal police shootings. So there you see the correlation of Black men in the economic being disproportionately impacted by economic castration, as well as lack of access to higher quality of education. And even when they do have access to levels of education, that does not guarantee that they are not going to be still disproportionately impacted by institutional powers. Okay.
I mean, Bill Cosby, well-educated, billions of dollars in jail.
Hey, Mike. Hey, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Engineering, what's up, baby?
Hey, what's up? In terms of, again, opportunities, because right now, in terms of unemployment rate, the unemployment rate for the U.S. is currently 13%. The unemployment rate for African Americans is 16%. Now, if we go deeper into the unemployment rate of just Black men, it's more than 20%, even more than 30%. So there's a very stark and dark reality in terms of opportunities for African Americans, especially men. And one, and in most channels, in most YouTube channels, we are trying to basically muster the way we're trying to be leaders, but we're not seeing opportunities in terms of, again, education, entrepreneurship, anything to basically become leaders of our community. And we're not throwing out solutions, which in most YouTube channels, all I see is, again, more of the entertainment rather than more of a solution idea. And we're trying, the Black community, especially the men, are trying to be leaders, but we're not seeing solutions. We're not seeing ways to invest. We're not seeing ways to basically come up. And again, the unemployment rate, again, is higher for Black men than any other community. And that's a problem.
There are channels out here, Engineering Cannabis. There are channels out here, but they have very, very low views.
Views, yeah, that's the problem.
They have very low views, and you'll have people tell you, "Well, you don't rate because you ain't getting the views I'm getting."
And
Enough. But at the end of the day, the significant stuff that we're trying to talk about and talking about various careers and everything else like that, ways to really showing you solutions, showing you where you can go. Because that's the best you can do as a think tank or something else. It's the best you can do. You can give people good information and show them where to go. You come on a regular and consistent basis here and drop ridiculously critical information. How many people do you think are really listening to an Engineering Cannabis? How many people are listening?
Yeah, okay. And I see more draw in terms of the dilemma between men and women in terms of the community, how we differ. But the problem is we're not seeing opportunities. The talking point of being difference between men and women, that's not what we should be dealing with. It's getting bad out here. The opportunities, they're out here, but we are not basically diving into it. And it's getting bad out here in terms of economics.
Look,
People need help.
I see people starting to move in, but it's quiet. But it's just not getting out there. And that's why we're going to keep pressing the gas pedal here. Go ahead, DE. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
Hey, along the lines that you guys are talking about, tonight Mike brought up an article that shows China is instead of going after the profit that they were previously, they looking for sustainability of the people keeping their jobs, keeping their income.
Plowing that money back into the people. Go ahead.
And one of the things that we don't do is in the Black community is we have no sustainability.
Well,
we tend to invest in things that don't sustain us. You know what I'm saying? We want that quick buck, but we also want to spend it quickly.
If you spent money on yourself, as far as in your own community, if you invested in your own institutions, you don't need even a federal pen to move anywhere for you. We can do a lot of it. We can go a long way in helping ourselves, a long way. But we are, like you say, if anybody making a little bit of dough, they buy a big car and they buy all this whack stuff that ultimately, doesn't mean shit. You know what I mean? So I'm even concerned about a big car these days to drive around For whom? Who am I driving a big fat car around for? For what? To impress whom? Get the fuck out of here. So at the end of the day, you have to look at what's important and prioritize. And it's our mindset to a large extent. Some of us really do get it because Black people can save money if we have to. Even with the little we get, we can save. But we have to consolidate our resources. What you're talking about, really invest in ourselves, and that I think is the big picture here. We talk about Black banking and public banking and this kind of thing. We talk about that. I don't hear people talking about that anywhere else. We don't have our own accounts in Black banks that we could really help ourselves. It's not going to solve every problem we have. So I'm not saying that it will. What it will do is it'll solve a lot. And we got to start investing in ourselves. That's a big thing first and foremost. But we don't move toward that. We talk about that here. See very, very few other places that really talk about that. We talk about IT and technology and so forth here all the time. This is very key. It's tailor-made for us. But a lot of us are not talking about it. A lot of us are worrying about, how sexy you are and what appeals to some fucking broad a whole lot. All this fucking whack shit. What the fuck does that mean at the end of the day? Woman ain't gonna be with your ass when your ass is broke. You know what I'm saying? Or torn out the frame. What's up? If that's what you're so concerned about. So if you're concerned about that, get your money right. Get your business game right. We have to be thinking along these lines. It seems like, we talk about it, but when the solutions are put forward or we talk about these things, people want to tell you that you're off, or you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't really have any good solutions for everyone. Yeah, there's 101 excuses out here. That's what I see. But I think we should just continue to put out real facts, real information. Those who are going to play are going to play. Those who are not, I'm sorry, but this game is good. This thing is on an accelerated game now. And if people think they can lay back and chill for a long time, it ain't gonna fucking happen. Oh, everything's okay. No, it's not. No, everything is not okay. So, I just want to just say that.
Yeah, was somebody else trying to get in? All right, let me just read this caption real quick from Al Jazeera. This is one last piece on the docket. Spain introduces basic income scheme to tackle poverty. Measure affecting about 2.3 million people in need of guarantees income of maximum $1,126 per family, government says. Spain's government has introduced a basic monthly income for struggling families amid the growing hardship caused by the outbreak of the new coronavirus. The move, announced on Friday, was part of last year's coalition agreement between Socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez and Pablo Iglesias, the head of the left-wing alliance. I'm not sure what's going on here. Left-wing alliance, Unidas. Iglesias said the crisis unleashed by the epidemic had forced the government to speed up its implementation of the measure. Today is a historic day for democracy when a new social structure is created. The measure, which is expected to cost an annual 3 billion euros, 3.3 billion US dollars, is aimed at ending extreme poverty, which affects about 600,000 homes and 1.6 million people. It will guarantee an income of 462 euros, $512 a month for an adult living alone. While for families, there would be an additional 139 euros, $154 per person, whether adult or child, up to a monthly maximum of 1,015 euros or 1,126 US dollars for every home. The funds will be allocated in line with other income. So anyone with a low-paid job would have their salary topped up to meet the threshold outlined on Friday. The Ministry for Inclusion and Social Security said it would mean that every home would have a guaranteed average annual income of 10,070 euros or $11,180. The government said the measure was expected to benefit about 850,000 homes, affecting a total of 2.3 million people, 30% of whom are minors. About 100,000 families would begin receiving the money on June 1st, it said. So that was Monday they should have been receiving this, okay? The coronavirus lockdown has started in mid-March, has left hundreds of thousands of people jobless, triggering a rapid rise in poverty that has outstripped the 2008 global financial crisis. Many families, particularly in Madrid, have for the first time found themselves forced to stand in line for food handouts at local churches and neighborhood organizations. Spain's gross domestic product, GDP, is expected to contract by 9.2% this year due to the pandemic, while the unemployment rate is forecast to rise from 13.8% at the end of 2019 to 19%. Okay? Mzunga is standing in line begging for food. Make it make sense, man.
Well, I know this. In Europe, they've been talking about a UBI since about the 17th century.
Mhm.
So this is nothing new to them, and this is something that has been going on. But this they're gonna end up doing that. They're gonna end up because they know what their circumstances are. The Mzungos are definitely gonna incorporate that. We're gonna incorporate that here too as well as time goes on. We already got it going on right now, and it's going to increase. Sorry to say, unless we do some things that are very critical here, and we're going to have to, better educate our people, and make sure we keep opportunities flowing here where people are educated, and definitely have opportunities. We're number one economy here in the world. We may lose that footing at some point in time, but as of right now, we have a huge economy, and we should have a lot of opportunities, and we should be a country that should be consistently growing. And this is going to be a part of self-investment in this, just like the Chinese are doing, or getting ready to do. We got to do the same thing. They see it, and a lot of stuff is sitting right in front of us. Hopefully, our leaders are bright enough to incorporate some of this. But you see what's happening with the Mzungos in Europe. And that means they will be doing business with whoever's going to give them a chance to have greater opportunities. And I'm showing you how wide open this game is.
But Nagone, these jokers are rather give what were they giving out? 1.3 billion, 1.5 billion a week or a day? Was it overnight? The overnight rate, 1.5 billion, right?
Something like that.
If they had given this out to individuals who were, say, working at McDonald's, you were making $10 an hour, especially in New York City, man. I mean, what can $10 an hour? You can't get nothing. You probably five of you guys probably living in your mother's basement. And if you're married, you and your husband are working 3 jobs together, 4 jobs.
You don't have a basement in the projects, man. You just
You got no basement in the projects, man.
So that money needs to
There's
go.
a basement in the projects, but I don't think you want to be living there.
You want to live in there? I've seen those, and they go 3 floors of heating and cooling and all kind of foolishness. But that money should have gone to individuals who are not making. There's no minimum. I can't see how $10 should be a minimum wage in New York City. People should be making $15, $20 an hour.
I thought the New York City minimum wage was $15.
Sure.
No.
No, I thought they put it up.
No.
Wait a second. No, I gotta confirm this. I could have sworn.
Nah. No, bro. And you got a 1-bedroom apartment in New York City. Well, other cities too. I mean, Atlanta, things are expensive. Miami, I mean, geez.
I mean, Atlanta, certain areas, you used to be able to get a place $600-$700 a month. You ain't gonna see that nowhere.
Nope.
No, it says right here. It says the minimum wage will continue to increase every year across New York State until it reaches $15 per hour.
Still, it hasn't reached it yet. As of it, you're saying
No.
as of now, it's not. So they're trying to keep it up. I think most places, are 10 to 85 or something like that. I forget what the rate is.
That's brutal, man.
Well, let me tell you something. I see the other day, me and my kids were looking at apartments here in Central Florida. A 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom apartment over $2,000 here. And everybody talking about how Florida is cheap.
Mhm.
But you know, like I said, that money should be going to people who don't have. Um, they might have the education. Some people here around here got their, bachelor's degree, got their associate degree, and they're still working in gas stations, still working in, $10, $12 an hour.
Horrific. Absolutely
You know what I'm
horrific.
saying? So those are the people. They should be doing what Spain. They should have started doing that a long time ago, where that money gets recirculated into the economy. Those people could turn around, buy the things that they have to buy, and instead of handing it over to banks, what the hell are the banks going to do with it? The bank's not loaning money out. I
No,
mean,
the
even
banks, the
even the
banks loan money
corporation,
out.
even the
It's loaning.
corporation.
Oh, the banks are loaning money out. They just ain't loaning it to you.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
You know, and
they're
and
loaning.
the, and, and the little people, the guy who he wants to buy a house, get out of that freaking $2,000 a month apartment, buy a house where he can pay $800 a month in mortgage. He's not getting it.
Hey, to go on 11, Dollar Will is asking the question, how much is a slice of pizza in New York?
Oh shoot,
All depends on where you go.
$5.
All depends on where you go. You want to go to one of the Sbarro or one of these other, kind of high end pizza shops. You're looking at $5-6 for a slice. One slice pizza. I'm just talking about regular cheese. I'm not talking about the pepperoni or anything else that you want to lay on it. You go to one of these little side joints. One of these little side joint pizza, pizzerias where you can walk in. That'll run you about $4. About $3 to $4. But a lot of pizzas. If you're gonna deal in a decent pizza shop and go and get a decent slice, man, it's gonna run you. With a little something on, it's gonna run you $7 to $8, man. $7-8 for a slice of pizza, and a soda's gonna run you like $10. $10 for that. And especially if you're in Midtown or someplace like that. If you're in the Bronx or you're dipping around, the outer edges somewhere, or in Brooklyn or someplace like that, depending on where you are, cost you a little bit less. But that's where it is. It's getting expensive.
In New York, do they just sell just the crust?
Oh, what's that?
In New York, do they sell just the crust of the pizza itself?
They sell just the crust. Might make it
Imagine that, right? Parmesan cheese on crust, and that's all you do.
I've seen some of those pizzas. They don't have any sauce on it. No pizza sauce. I'm serious.
Okay. The pizza place by me, right here in Scarsdale, called Catania's. They've been around. This guy gets everything from Italy, and they're old time, Sigis. So or that would be Sicilians. So they bring everything in from Italy and all that, and and that's so it's all homemade products, and pizzas, the calzones, all that are great stuff. Great eating over there. Small little place you can sit down. Good food. Everything's chill, but to get a decent slice, calzone slice and a soda, it's $11, $12.
That is it's unbelievable, man. I mean, if you just sold the crust and a packet of ketchup, man, with some Parmesan cheese, that's like the bare minimum. I think that's like an appetizer. Who the hell wants to spend 10 to $12 on a slice of pizza and the soda?
Well, I said a slice of pizza, calzone, and a soda is going to run about $12. Like real small, about $12. If you're going to get a pizza and a soda's going to run you $2.5 to $2.5. Pizza's going to run you about $6. So you're looking at about $8-9. Close to $10 for that. Yeah, close to $10.
Unbelievable, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's where it is. In downtown Scarsdale. Oh, I just want to say, in Scarsdale here, we had some fairly decent sized demonstrations. Man, Becky and them were out there heavy. They were out there heavy, man. Downtown Scarsdale,
But
blocking up the roads, man. In Scarsdale, New York.
yeah, but did they have a slice?
Let's nah, man. No. They wouldn't because the pizza shop was sitting right on the corner as well. And no, I didn't see them having any slices, man. But
that is crazy, bro.
but they were out. They were out demonstrating. They were out demonstrating heavy. Scarsdale and Hastings, these places out heavy. I thought I was like, look at this. But anyway, yeah. But it's expensive, yeah. So New York, and if you want to get the New York style pizza and all that, and you want to play, you have excellent pizza shops here. Excellent. You have a lot of Italians who have a lot of connections, back to Italy and all that, and they get a lot of their stuff there, and they pride themselves on their special Parmesan and all that, yeah, you're gonna pay for it. Pizza's great. Pizza's great, but you are gonna pay a little bit, and they're cheaper. They're cheaper shops as well, but if you want to get a decent slice is what I call from a really good pizzeria, you're gonna spend like I said, man, you definitely breaking a $10 bill, that's for sure. You're breaking a 10, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, it's not a real pizza until you actually have some oil dripping from it, man.
Yes, sir. And Luigi behind the desk spinning it up for you, real nice. Not not a Mexican guy or whatever, but an authentic Italian, an authentic Sigi.
Yeah.
A real Sigi, real Sicilian. That's when tutto bene. That's how it goes. Is what it is. They take a lot of pride of that here, especially in West. They take a lot of pride.
So you're talking about you have to work 1 hour a day just for a slice in a juice, man, and a soda.
Yo, man, yo. You can go to like the little bodega joints where they have the little pizzerias over there where you can do a little bit better. Yeah, you can do a little bit better, but that's about where we are with that. I can't speak I can't speak for any other place around. Jersey would be somewhat close as well. But I can't speak for a lot of the places though. But I'll speak to that.
Yeah, this is crazy. I don't know what they were thinking. I'm speaking of the whole entire UBI pandemic. I mean, Europe is looking at this, Spain is looking at this and saying, yo, we got a lot of people that are hungry inside these food and bread lines, man. Mazungas are hungry, and government is coming up with all types of policies to fix this. In the United States, man, law and order is the word of the day.
Mazungos don't have it easy, man. They catch it a tough time in Italy, Portugal, Spain, Greece, all these places. People were out there, demonstrating in the streets pretty heavily as well. Over this whole Black Lives Matter thing. Not that they give a damn, but they're sitting there saying, they're talking about, the foot on their neck as well. There's a foot on their neck. There's a knee on their throat. There's a knee on there, or like the Italian guys say, the knee on my throat. They got a knee on my throat over here. Got a knee on the throat. They're tight about that. And you see a lot of that going on. So I think that's a lot of what we're seeing as well.
It's crazy.
That surprised me, Mike. Remember we were talking about that last week, and I said there's a tacit, what's it called, to say nothing about what happened to Black people. And when I start seeing this happening, I'm saying, wait a minute. Something is changing. Either there's somebody who say, give the order that go ahead and do this, or people are just picking up and say, we are tired of this too.
Yeah, we are. I think in Europe, what we're seeing is the Europeans have a very long history with serfdom and the oligarchies and the and the royalty and this kind of thing. And what really kept how they were able to establish these oligarchies and establish these feudal societies were done largely through their coercive forces of their states. So their police were what would be the equivalent of their police would come out and would crush any kind of rebellions, would be hard on people. It would be very draconian and tearing a lot of people out of the frame, taxing the more middle of the road people a lot harder, and slamming down on the serfdom. And you had very heavy-handed tactics doing that. And they have a very long history of this. Literally from the Dark Ages straight up to the Renaissance, if you want to call it that. Damn near up to I'm not gonna say up to present day, but certainly well into the 17th century, moving into the 18th for sure. And we saw some of that culminating also in the French Revolution and so forth, that helped to give birth to our country as well. But anyway, speaking a lot more on that, a lot of Europeans I think are seeing this. This is what they think they're seeing going on in America, and it scares them because they figure, damn, if it's going on over there like that, that means they're going to be exporting that as well. Maybe more extensively through Europe as well. It's going to hit here again. We've got a big history. We understand what this is about. We see it. Maybe the Americans don't see it as well, but we see it, and we're going to speak out against it. Because this is what I think they're responding to as well. It's part of their history. They see this. They see what this looks like. So where we might be saying, "This is strange, man. What the fuck's going on?" They see it. They understand. They understand what they're saying. And so much of their history was steeped deep in feudalism and feudalist societies or neo-feudalist. We have a neo-feudalist game going here, and they see that because they've had a very strong history of this in their past, and they're scared. I think they're kind of they're a bit terrified of what they're seeing here. They're a bit terrified. It's a bit more than just a black man. They figure if it's him, it's going to be me next. And that's kind of how people are looking at it, exactly the way they should be looking at it.
We got Renaissance Man on the panel. What's going on, man? How's the protest going on over there? I know you were participating in it.
Nah, I'm good. How's everyone doing? Now, I might go down there tomorrow.
What's going on, baby?
Hey, what's up, Nagon?
Yeah, man.
Nah, I might go down there tomorrow. I don't know if y'all have seen the news, but it's raining here, so but people out there are still protesting. But the mayor, Muriel Bowser, she actually had a big Black Lives Matter logo painted on the street, like covers 2 blocks, can see it like from a aerial view, just because Trump's had pretty much all of the military and National Guard up here, so she's kind of giving him the finger on people still run the city, so they got that rolled out. So I might have to go check that out, as well as they renamed a plaza Black Lives Matter Plaza. So it's
how are they able to paint that though? I mean, with all the stuff going on, how are they able to paint the ground with Black Lives Matter?
They just literally, it's in the middle of the road. You literally had some volunteers and they got yellow rollers and they just literally painted. You should Google it.
Oh, okay. So they didn't. It wasn't like a mural or anything. It was just.
Nah. It was literally just on the street, and you just saw people out there with paintbrushes, yellow paint, and just Black Lives Matter, and it literally stretches 2 blocks.
Was it in rainbow colors?
No, it was all yellow. It was not in rainbow colors. It was not in rainbow colors, but yeah, no, I agree with you saying, Nagon. Yeah, people are seeing this. I don't know if you've been paying attention up there in Buffalo, but they had 57 officers resign because you had a police officer pretty much shoved down this 75-year-old elderly man, and he started bleeding.
So it went viral. So
yeah, mayor's in a tough spot right now because
canes and shit. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, mayor's kind of a tough spot because, like I said, 57 officers from that protest response unit, retired. So, they're basically trying to bully him into, submitting basically because he disciplined those officers. So, it'd be interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, I think people are waking up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy. I thought you were out there, man, tossing bottles or something, man.
Nah, I'm not. Hey, I'm all for peaceful protest. There's a lot of people who said, hey, it's produced a whole bunch of nothing. But I'm like, if you get it in critical mass, you see all these stores like Target and Walmart have Apple stores shut their stores down across the country. That's money they're losing because, people aren't shopping or, you know, afraid of looting. But I'm like, still, even if you don't have any looting or anything like that going on, you got that kind of critical mass in the street just disrupting things, you know, brings about change. You gotta be organized with this is the grievance, and you know, this is my plan that I won't address to fix it. And I think a lot of people just see the grievance and don't really have the plan. I know back home in Birmingham, they took down several monuments for Confederate statues. I know they did that in Alexandria as well, in Virginia, and then Richmond. They're taking down. I think it's a Robert E. Lee statue. So may not be the changes everyone necessarily wants, but you're definitely seeing people realize, like, hey, some things gotta change.
Yeah, people are getting nervous, of course, especially when you start hitting them in the wallet. When you start hitting them in the pockets, folks take notice. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead, man. I'm sorry if I jumped in. Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say I don't consider taking down those statues at this point in 2020 to be a significant thing.
Mike,
I mean, they are still offensive. They are.
You don't or you do.
Mike, if you're in the South, Mike, those statues are like God here.
No, I understand that. I understand that. I'm saying they had since the Obama era to do that. I mean, why take it down now? Why not just if you're going to take them down, just put them inside of a museum or something like that. Don't just take them down and then say, well, this is what we're doing right now. No, that doesn't really solve all that much in terms of, Floyd's death. I think that's a bit, cowardice to actually.
No. I think people, that's one of the things that I think have gotten, that's one of those little, initial wins, kind of like with, the whole Dylan Roof situation, you got the Confederate flag down, but people just got to keep putting the pressure on. It's been back and forth about these statues for a while because they actually passed a state law that said, the state said, hey, it's a fine and you can't remove these statues without state approval. And, the mayor in Birmingham pretty much got a $50,000 fine, and they opened up a GoFundMe and paid the fine. So that's how they got around it there. Even though one legislator was threatened, oh, let's go revise it and change the fine to, $10,000 a day. So
wow.
Yeah, it's contentious. DE Raptor is right. It is contentious about those statues in the South.
And what kills me is those statues didn't go up after the Civil War. They didn't go up until the 20s, until black soldiers and stuff really started coming back from the First World War and started to, started to really talk about, real equality here. And, then they put these up to reestablish white supremacy. They are monuments to the white supremacist order in the South.
Mm-hmm.
The losers, the fucking losers and the insurrectionists.
Mzungu statues.
Oh yeah, the mayor of Birmingham called them participation trophies. So
yeah,
the Mzungu. Oh man.
No, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
But now I have heard some good legislation, practices. Like someone was posting, if a police officer turns off their body cam, intentionally, that should be charged with obstruction of evidence or destruction of evidence. You got people talking about, I think you definitely need to do something about the prosecutor as far as them investigating police shootings. You don't need them investigating the very people that they work with. Trying to think what else someone else is talking about. There's a big push to defund the police up there in New York, in the sense of they want to basically, really scope down the responsibilities of, police as far as, dealing with mental health and stuff like that, and really just try to scale it down a little bit. So we'll see if that goes anywhere. I'm surprised no one's really brought up the war on drugs, because, that's really driven some of these budgets of, relaxing some of these policies. I mean, I know here in DC, it's been relaxed a little bit, but, whether that gets into a national conversation of, hey, this has gone a little bit too far.
The police should not be getting military vehicles. That should be one. They shouldn't have the union. You should not be able to, if you're involved in some certain, if you get fired, that's when your union step in. But your union cannot step in if you shoot somebody. Union hiring a lawyer for you, they can't talk to you before you talk to the prosecutor. This is the kind of foolishness that you got in police departments all across the U.S.
Yeah,
but can't talk to you for 24 hours after you shoot somebody. Is that
But
a
if you have
joke?
if you have a de facto police state and it's being backed up very heavily by the military industrial you know complex, if you will, you're going to have that, and you're talking about very powerful forces with an awful lot of money involved in this. So police state, big part of it. They're pushing this, and this is an agenda that's being pushed by not even so much even by the police, which the police are definitely pushing, but you have people like David Rockefeller and the Koch brothers and all. You have very wealthy people with a lot of dollars putting into the system, pushing this
Ford
type of
Motor Company.
Ford, yeah, absolutely. I mean, big players, DuPont and all that.
Yeah.
Very big players involved in this. So
Target.
They're creating their
I
own armies. They're creating their own armies on U.S. soil.
So this is not a game here. I mean, you have very big players with an awful lot of money and involved in this. So yeah, can it be turned around, and can people push this back? Yeah, we certainly could. That's what's got these people shook right now. Folks are shook. When I'm in Scarsdale, fucking Scarsdale, New York, fucking Scarsdale, Becky and all her crew out front choking up the streets down in downtown. What? Scarsdale? Becky out there, thick as a brick. So this is problematic. This is a problem. It's a problem. The Plutarchs have got to look at this kind of oh shit, what the fuck is this? That's what they're saying. They're getting a little nervous.
Yeah, I mean, D Raptor's right. These guys should not be running around with mine-resistant ambush protected vehicles.
Hell no, man. The MIC doing this. Hell no.
I mean, look at, they had Humvees.
Man, Humvees.
But yeah, you see, the drug war is where you really start to see that militarization take place, and that's why I was wondering why there'd be a discussion on it, because all these no-knock warrants and knocking down people's doors and stuff like that, and that's where all that started.
All this was going on. I remember a movie back in the 80s with Roy Scheider. The movie was called Blue Thunder. I don't know if you guys remember that one. Maybe some people might remember that. And it was a military helicopter that was basically, it was a special, super high-tech new military helicopter that could cruise at a very low cruising speed, but yet make no sound. I don't know. D, do you remember that movie?
Bro. Yeah.
Yeah, this was like 79, 1980 or so. And it was about, you saw the the militarization of your police departments, and this copter was specially used to dip around and listen in on conversations, and you can hear what people were doing, and it could do all, it could just follow you around, and at the end of the day, if you tried to fire on this bad boy, that was curtains. So they had this specialized copter to do all of what would be considered to be really invading your rights and everything. And in the end, you saw the lead, Roy Scheider, the lead of this. I think he was a police officer or lead sergeant. Kind of saw this thing was being used improperly, and how the whole system was all fucked up, and he ends up putting it on a railroad track, and a train hits it and destroys it or whatever. But anyhow, you really started seeing, and that was a movie, but yet you did start seeing the militarization of really your police departments really at the end of the 70s, and really in the 80s, especially the Nixon administration started thinking about it, and then when Ronald Reagan came in, this shit was on fleek. So this really started to go down around Ronnie, around 1980, and it ran heavy through the 80s, came up through the 90s, and here we are today, with full outfitted military, basically battalions that call themselves police departments. Yeah, so this is nothing. I remember David Rockefeller and these guys speaking about this. How they wanted to militarize the police, and how they wanted to make sure that they would put chips in everybody's hand or chips in people's bodies because this is what they wanted to have so you could track everyone. I mean, these guys have been planning this shit out a long time.
You said David Rockefeller or David Monroe?
Dave.
No.
I'm sure Dave Monroe will be down. I'm sure Dave Monroe will be down with Rockefeller that one as well. but wait a minute, Dave Monroe, man. Shout out to Dave Monroe. But with Rockefeller, yeah, these guys were all about this, and this was they did an expose on this. I think this was in Harper's Bazaar magazine, or maybe it was in the New Yorker. But they had interviews with a reporter who was reporting this, and so this has been going on a long time, and I think that these guys are just going to keep this thing cooking, unless people decide to sit back and say this is something that we don't want, and maybe able to turn it back. But you're going to have a very large overall response from people here in this country, and that's certainly going to be white folks and black folks and everyone as well to kind of stand up against this. But this militarization of your police departments and so forth is on and cracking. It's on and cracking. You'd be shocked. New York City Police Department, can't believe the stuff that they have. You can't believe the shit that these guys have got.
Oh, I believe it's $6 billion budget.
You can't believe it. Can't believe it. Every vehicle you can speak about, submarines, aircraft, high-tech helicopters, every weapon you can imagine, every piece of safety gear that you can think about for them, full outfitted SWAT teams that are basically like special forces. Coming. I mean, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
The program gave it to all. I mean, they were using this, man.
What borough are you in, Nagone?
I'm actually outside. I'm in a suburb. I'm in a suburb of New York City, but I have an office there, and I go in and out of New York City a lot. And I've been in and out of the city all my life, so this is just how it is. So I know the city exceedingly well, and I certainly know the NYPD, and I certainly know what their capabilities are, and it's frightening.
Yeah, robots. Yeah, that's the other thing. It'll be interesting to see, like, with advance in robots and new technology, how much of that gets flown in, or gets rolled into the capabilities. Because robots still relatively new, but you got robots go in and detonate a bomb, or these guys now don't have to go break down your door. They'll send a robot in to go break down the door and throw in a smoke bomb or something like that. So.
Well, Boston Dynamics, Massachusetts State Police were actually using them. They were using the robotic dogs.
I was just about to say that before these things used to be made, given to the military, before they go into the hands of the police. Now it's they're making these things and giving this to the police right now, straight away.
Yeah. So.
That looks like something straight out of the military.
Bradley.
Exactly.
Bradley. Man, this is something else.
M113A.
Yep.
Bradley.
Yep.
No. These police departments have everything. These police, especially these big police departments. Boston and New York City and LA. These guys are rocking with they are rocking. These are basically armies. Mm-hmm. These are not just cops. This is not officer friendly, just hanging out in the corner. Officer Joe Bolton. When I was a kid, he used to have this guy. He used to come on and Officer Joe Bolton. He'd come on and he'd show you cartoons and all that. He'd be dressed in his police outfit. He was showing you the kinder face of the police as a kid. But
there's no real reason to have a vehicle like this, a 6x6. What the fuck do you need a 6x6 for?
Because they're anticipating. See, this is what you have to understand. They are anticipating with the game these guys are running. At some point in time, they are anticipating very large levels of let's say disputes against them. they're planning to go to war on your ass. They're planning on it. And when that shit hits, they're gonna be breaking out shit that people have not seen and gonna be like, what is this? And that's what's up, that's what's up.
I was gonna say you got Trump on the verge of it now with trying to authorize the military against citizens, and people are like, "Hey,
Trump knows what we have now. Trump knows he's fully briefed on what's up. He's briefed. He's like, oh fuck, look what we got here. Oh, these Negroes, these Negroes, oh fuck, can't wait to fucking bust off on these. Oh, I can't wait. He can't wait. Believe me, he's sitting there jacking off waiting to do this shit for real.
Hey, if these military commanders, I'm talking about I'm talking from bird colonel up. If these guys were trigger happy, we would already have nobody on the streets in the U.S. after sundown. But they're not. They're the ones who are keeping him from doing this foolishness. That's the only way I can see it.
Yeah, it was the mayor who also that was another thing she did. She pretty much said, hey, all these National Guard and Army troops, people came from like Fort Bragg, like send them back. That's not that's not what we need here. So
yeah, I mean they're looking to really quell unrest. These guys are not playing around. Like I said, these guys have a plan. They have a full out plan. It's going on underneath people's nose, and what a lot of these white folks have seen, with a lot of the Mzungus have totally seen now, is that all the stuff that they supported. Oh, I'm against this Negro, I'm against you, and they see that this shit is really designed against them as well. And these guys are armed to bear. They're sitting there saying, "Holy crap! What do we have here?" And
black people were the test bed. Everything that happens here, black people is the test bed for it happening before it happened to the Caucasian folks. We get tested first, and then they put it on them, and it's almost like they're blind.
Have any of you all at your job? I was talking to a friend of mine today. Have any of y'all actually had any discussions with people at work about this? Like guided discussions? Like he was telling me actually that one of the managers who was black mentioned it in their staff meeting to some of the other managers. So they had a discussion, and they had pretty much all the black people in the group. Wasn't a ton of them, but they just went around and just talked about it. He said it was very productive. Like everyone was happy that they did it, and they want to actually do it again. I was just curious if any other people have had an experience like that at work.
No, we're not even in the office.
They did this over Zoom
or
Skype.
Yeah, the thing is, the culture of communication is different in person than it would be over a technological medium. And so the problem here is that although white people playing lip service in these discussions, what are they really, the discussion should not be led by them. It should be led by black people only. But if your organization does not have a whole lot of diversity and inclusion, you're kind of screwed. It's a reflection of just poor culture within the organization, at least dated culture for that matter. And so for me, the email that we received, man, every company must have like a copy paste, of things that they want to say, because I saw this a month or so ago, during the pandemic, that they were sending out these emails, about concern about, people of color, POC, and these stupid little terms. But when the Floyd situation happened, Business Insider posted an excellent article or an op-ed urging a lot of CEOs and heads of staff to actually take this course of action. It seems like all of them seem to be reading from the same template and saying the same thing word for word. It's hard to take them seriously if you can't look at them in the eye. right? It just seems very disingenuous. At least for me as a black man in the office, it seems disingenuous that you're so concerned now, but you don't even have diversity in your own organization, but you're so concerned about the harsh nature of racism when you practice it every day in the workplace.
Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah, this one, just like I said, this is a conversation I had with him this morning. He did say pretty much it was led by them. Like I said, of the managers in that group, they got 3 managers and a senior manager, and two of the three of the managers are black, and then you got a white woman as a senior manager, and then you got a white guy who's the other third manager. So it was kind of led by the 2 black managers, and then you got several black people in those various groups who kind of gave their point of view and discussed their things. At least he said it seemed positive from what he said, in the fact that he had lots of people reaching out to him on IM. He was like, one of his friends is a civil rights attorney, so he was telling them about some of the cases that he had dealt with, and he was saying one person like asked him for a link for like donations and stuff like that. So like I said, this is all secondhand, but he seemed pretty positive in that. But I do also know, he said, you had some people who didn't say anything the whole time, and I was like, yeah, I used to work in this group, so I was like, yeah, it's probably so and so didn't say anything, and this person as well. So it was but he felt overall positive about it. So I was just curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're hoping to get out of it. I mean, it's not like racism started with the Tangerine Tyrant. I mean, this has been going on a lot longer than he's been in office. So,
oh yeah, no, he talked about his whole experience, like from being a kid, and like how just things he came in contact with. The black woman in the group talked about. He said that basically, her she'll be out in the store and she has a son, and people come up and say how cute he is and this and that. And she was like, yeah, people say that now, but how long are they going to see him as this cute child before he turns into a threat? So, they didn't hold any bones. I'll give them that at least. I don't know, like I said, how much legitimate difference it makes, but sounds like they at least did their part of, at least saying, hey, this is what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm forgetting the woman's name right now who back in the 70s did she was a teacher, and she did a study on color in her class.
It was a Caucasian woman, an older Caucasian.
Jane.
Yeah. Her name is Jane. Yeah.
Jane. What was her last name? Somebody.
Elliot.
Huh?
Elliot.
Jane who?
Elliot. Yeah. Name is Elliot. Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right.
She's still alive.
Yes, she is. And I just recently saw her, and she said, "Listen," she says, "every white person is, you don't understand. Every white person is racist in this country. Now, they may not be, virulently racist, but you've been trained to be that way. Your school system has taught you to be this way. Your school system." She said, I've had to retrain people once, and I didn't realize how racist I was until I saw what was going on. I had to retrain myself and then retrain people, because you were trained, or everything that you're being taught in school is not by way of the facts per se, especially history. It's by way of a certain perception, and a story to be told a certain way. So they're perceived as, as the good folks. You're perceived as the bad, as the savages, and this is how you're trained. She says people have to be retrained out of this. So that is a, she was very forthcoming with that information, and she was very upfront about it, and not even holding back. Just nah, man, just no. White people, they tell you they're not racist. Yes, they are. They are. Some of them may not even be as aware of it as aware of it as they should be, but you are. That is just the way it is. That's how we've been taught here in the school. You were taught that from the time 5 years old. When you get into when you go into school and you come all the way through it, you're taught this. This is what you're taught. That's why we have so many shine bones who are here in the society. You're taught to be a shine bone. You're taught to be that way.
Yeah.
It's not that you're a shine bone because but you're taught to be a straight up shine bone. That is the deal, and that's more the norm than anything else. So you have to retrain yourself against that. And that's what a lot of these white folks are seeing as well. They're seeing just how jammed up they are and how jammed up they are in their thinking. They see that, You know, the optics, with more than anything else about what's got a lot of these people shook, is the optics on this look so bad. The optics look terrible. That's just the optics of this. This guy screaming and praying to his children and then screaming for his mother. This was horrifying. And a lot of people don't want to be associated with that. So now they got to come to grips and deal with some of this. The optics was terrible on this. Anyway, go ahead.
Hey, Nagon, you saw that Chinese that article with the Chinese foreign affairs minister? I can't breathe.
Yeah. I mean, and people almost making a joke. They're almost making a joke out of the United States. Like, look at you, y'all out here just looking like, look at you, Mzungus over here. You guys are. Hey, look at you.
What DE Raptor is pointing to, because a lot of people may not know what he's talking about. CGTN came out with a 30-second snippet of the contradiction that the United States wants to crack down on the protests here, but support the protests
in Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong. Then this is what I've been pointing out since the very first day of the protest. All these Black people who are against the protests and in the the demonstrations don't realize that the United States government has been supporting the same radical sort of protests and demonstrations in other countries.
That's right.
Where everybody wants to argue about it and talk about, well, this doesn't really help anything. Well, the United States doesn't seem to agree with you. They don't agree with you.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, Nagon. You were saying you had to retrain people. Did she like go through on a way to like retrain, or she just kind of said it and you had to kind of figure it out yourself?
She actually went through. She actually went through a way of retraining. Said she was doing that even with kids. She did that with teachers, with adults, and she got ran out of town. They threatened her life.
Oh, I believe it.
They firebombed the house. Yeah, they firebombed the house.
To get on her back. Yes, so she has done it. She said, well, I can retrain kids. They're easy, but said the adults are a little more of a problem because they're more violent. They respond more violently. And she said she was threatened. Said, get this white bitch out of here before we fucking kill her. These are white people telling get this white, literally. And she was only doing the eye color thing. The dark colored eyes to the light colored eye. Yeah. They started looking inside their hearts for a second, horrified them, and then they said, I don't want to look at this. And said, get your ass out of here. And they threatened to take her ass out. I mean, they threatened to take her ass out of there. So she said she had to get on the next thing smoking. So that's where she was with this. But yes, she does have a very active program to do such. And this is what she's about today. But she is very open about it. Oh no, white, no, don't buy that shit. They tell you they're not racist. Yes, they are. Don't even think about it. I'm not talking about this from no liberal perspective. I'm telling you what the situation is. And she's just breaking it down. Very forthright. She's on YouTube, I believe. You might be able to see it on YouTube.
She's got a few videos on YouTube.
Yeah. Last time I saw her was on the Rock Newman show, but that was a little while ago. No. Actually, she's on Felipe Matthews' platform. Yeah, she's a part of his platform now. So if you go to Felipe Matthews on YouTube, he has an excellent channel about melanin, and she's been instrumental in building up that platform with him, and Dr. I forget her name now, Dr. other white woman too, who's also similar.
Oh yeah, there's another one. Yeah,
Dr. Better lawyer, I think that's her name. And so yeah, she has race sensitivity training. If you ever get a chance to watch her documentary on it, she put the white girl through the same process of being mistreated, from a racial standpoint, and the girl folded within 30 seconds. So
yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah, she couldn't handle it. So that's the sort of process that she puts white people through. For white people, it's a cultural shock to them. So
I don't. No, I was gonna say I don't know if you have ERGs at your job, but that's one of the things that and I guess diversity inclusion as well too. But they do some of that training, and me being in one of the programs I'm in, they brought diversity and inclusion with us, and they did a real light one, and I could just tell people were not reacting to it well, and these are younger people, millennials, and then I also heard they did they did sort of I don't know if you've seen the video on TV about I'm sorry, not on TV, on YouTube about a race, but they did something similar to that where, like, you know, if your parents are still married, take 2 steps forward. You know, if you had access to a private education, take 2 steps forward. If you know, if you know someone who's been incarcerated, take 2 steps forward. You know, or I was saying, don't take any steps forward. You know, things like that. So, and I heard that one was kind of, you know, controversial. So it's you're right. It's not always well received. A lot of times it's not, but you know, some people will be open to it, and some people just kind of, you know, do it because they forced to, and that's really it. So
yeah. And the thing is, what are they hoping to gain from it is the question. You know, because for us as Black people, we know what we want, but for them, what are they hoping to gain? Because for them, it opens up a level of perversion that may have not been there before, because they get off watching shows like Cops in the 80s, right? You know, with the Bob Marley, you know, playing in the background, you know, bad boy, what you gonna do when they come for you? That sort of perspective. They love watching these little things. That was their porn. That's soft porn to them. Liberal porn, for that matter. So,
not very true. On at least on the company, and obviously, you know, and the company I work for, a lot of our money comes from the government. So, for them, it's a legal issue. You know, you can't have all this bias, and you know, I'm sure there's probably internal things of hey, organizations need to at least look semi, you know, reflective, and that requirement's only gonna increase more with, you know, younger people coming in, and as the country becomes more diversified. So that's their incentive. And then, you know, I don't know how serious they take it at other companies where it's just really, you know, something that they say, hey, we'll make teams perform better and better profit. So
I think some whites here are starting to see, since, you know, and if you go to some of, because I used to be in the white section of YouTube a lot, and they would always, because you know, and I've grown up around white folks, but yet it's always good to blog and talk with them, because you see, because they're anonymous, so they're gonna lay out to you how a lot of them really think. And outside of this race thing, they have a real issue with the police state. This is a police state. They got a problem with that. They have a problem with some of the growing fascism that they see. They have some fears of this as well. When they start seeing cops just putting you on your neck and you spitting blood out there and crying and screaming for your mother, they know something's terribly wrong. That this is gone. This thing is getting out of hand. When I drive down into Scarsdale, New York, other what they would call high-end neighborhoods or townships like Hastings on the Hudson, and all of this, where average houses are $800 to $1 million a year and all this kind of stuff, and they're choking the streets with this. There's real angst. These guys are looking at a growing police fascist state that's grown right up underneath their nose, and they're starting to see it. And they're like, okay, we got the niggas, but how long is it going to be before it comes to us? And that's what some of these people are really concerned about. I think these people are looking at just, all right, okay, we don't push this on the Negroes like it's all right, but man, they tearing these guys out the frame, and that's not guaranteed. It's not going to happen to us, because a lot of white people get killed by cops as well. So I think they're looking at this thing getting a little out of hand. I think there's some who are seeing this, and they're watching this closely, and they're nervous of it. They're nervous of it. Certainly, the Europeans are seeing what's going on, but certainly here in this country, there's a certain sector, and they're not all ultra liberals, because there's some right wingers who are very much against the police state as well, and they're sitting there saying, "Yeah, come down, these Negroes," but now all of a sudden they're starting to see that they got a huge police state coming up underneath them, and how are they going to manage that themselves? And there are real issues with this. There are real issues with this. So some folks are coming to grips with some of this. So
some are, and
you know, a lot are not, but there's some who are. Like I said, you're talking about these areas in my county, which is a fairly wealthy one. It's certainly got some poor areas, no doubt, but it's got some, you know, I mean, Bill, you know, the Clintons live up here, you know what I mean? So Jay-Z was, you know, when he bought his house in Scarsdale, he was 2.5 miles, just 2.5 miles from my house. You can walk there, jog there, you know. this is where folks are, and a lot of the intelligentsia and so forth. You got a lot of stuff going on in these areas. They get nervous. So
But it's not.
I'm watching. I'm watching this close. I'm watching this
It's
close.
not just it's not just a police state they're worried about. They look at this thing and say, hey, the politics and the money.
Yeah,
they
for
look
sure.
at how
All
close
that
they
goes into
are to losing everything.
For sure.
They're
for
saying,
sure.
hey, we are only a step away from, now it's us that only a step away from being in the same position as black people.
For sure. That is for sure. No
All
doubt.
right.
I was gonna add too. You have that, and you have guys who have that Drew Brees mentality. So
Oh, and listen. Oh, I just want to say this. You man Shannon Sharp put a fatwa on homie. Like you may as well retire, son. You ain't gonna be around next year. Yo, they telling him to retire, because folks,
no,
some lineman's gonna fall out and let this guy get a concussion or something.
no, he's right though. The people can't look at you the same in the locker room for saying that. So
Nah. He put a fatwa on homie. So I'm like, he put a hit on him. So unfortunately, Drew Brees, I don't believe he'll be finishing the season. But anyway, go ahead. Very, very stupid man. Very stupid. But,
Anyways, thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button if not already done so. Share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust community. Those posted on the community tab. Shalom, everyone.
peace.